Welcome in, Texas football fans. Welcome in, everyone, on the On Texas Football Tuesday night live stream as we count down the days to the Texas and college football season. 11 days now towards the start of the Longhorn football season. We're into mock week for Texas and mock into the game week beyond that as we count the days. We're only 4 days away, 4 sleeps away from watching college football this weekend on Saturday with a 6-game slate. Won't include the Longhorns, but Florida State, Georgia Tech, SMU, Nevada. With Jeff Choate now the head coach out there at Nevada. So we've got some games to look forward to and certainly a lot to talk about. There was a football player availability today for the Longhorns, which we'll talk about. CJ Vogel was down there. He's still down on campus, looking to avoid getting a parking ticket, I think is fair to say, as we do this. And the Rod Babers is ready to roll as usual. And we're going to talk with you. And there's CB already in. Tough all day. Guys, are we feeling it? We're getting closer to actual football games. I know, Rod, you as a former player in particular get tired of the talking season probably more than anybody. You're ready to talk about some football, some actual on-game film watching and film game and study and the game itself, right?
Yeah, and I feel like the offseason went by faster this year, probably because Texas was a good team last year, probably a borderline great team last year. I feel like the offseason went by faster too. So I'm with you. I think there's a lot of excitement about this team. I'm ready to talk about some real football. Game week, baby. It's finally people actually talking about Colorado State. I've heard this week was the first week I heard even Sark talking about it, heard some other folks in the media talking about it, specifically talking about Colorado State. CJ and I have been diving into the Texas opponents for a few weeks now, leading up to it. Now, way too early previews on Texas football. But CJ, it's nice to hear people starting to talk about specific game week opponents, and mentioning, what style of play, brand of football Colorado State's gonna break out, which, by the way, is familiar because you'll see some air raid from Colorado State. But CJ, that's what I think is comforting, that now I'm looking at actual game week preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the part of the fall camp where no longer is it 1s versus 1s or 2 versus 2s or 3s versus 3s, right? It's going to be your first and your second team offense versus the scouts, and they're going to be giving them a look. They'll be providing some sort of idea of what Colorado State will be doing week 1 whenever they come to DKR. Obviously, I'm not too far from DKR. Aaron, as you mentioned, I got my car in sight just in case I got to make a bolt for a ticket here in a minute. But no, word I got this morning is, they had the play cards up. Everybody had their assignments, the red guy, the blue guy, the green receiver, whatever it is. You go run those routes, you go play that defense, and you let the 1s and the 2s get a good look at what will be on the field against Colorado State coming up in just about 11 days, right? It's creeping up real quick, and, man, it's exciting. But, Rod, to your point about what we'll be talking about over the next week or so this Saturday with, some exciting games for week 0. I mean, normally, you'll have one marquee matchup this year. Maybe not, but Florida State, Georgia Tech's intriguing. Who knows what you got with Delaware State missing their flight out to Hawaii. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but 10.5-hour flight across the country to get out to Hawaii for that week 1 opening game, and they missed the flight because of a bus snafu. Welcome back to college football, folks. It's here.
I had not heard that story. That is fantastic. That is a weird story.
That's not an easy fix from Delaware State to Hawaii. That's a long way to go. That's good stuff right there. And, I know by next Tuesday we'll be talking about the actual game, but I do know, Rod, that Colorado State's coached by Jay Norvell, who was here, got to know Jay. Jay's an excitable guy and got into it with Deion Sanders last year and helped him sell a lot of sunglasses, I think, was kind of the deal. And they have a quarterback and a receiver tandem that claim they gave up a lot of NIL money to stay at Colorado State. So we'll start talking about that. Air raid could be good for the corners and the defensive backs to see, where they're at with that against the Colorado State team. I will say this, and CJ, you're still out there trying to at the Cockrell School of Engineering, as I see behind your left shoulder. It's going to be hot. Today was about 106, 107 degrees, and hopefully something breaks between now and then. But man, this heat is oppressive. They're doing the mock week, CJ, the 2:30 game this coming week. They're going to stay at the hotel on Friday night. They're trying to simulate everything as much as possible, what next week will be. Then school will be back in as of next week. So especially for the young guys, the new players, portal players, just trying to assimilate into everything that's going to be happening next week. So, rep it all and be ready. No surprises, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that heat, something I've been dealing with today. I don't have Wi-Fi in the new house just yet. As you can see, that's why I'm here. And thank you to the university to have that public free Wi-Fi, right? So that's why I'm here. I can actually hear the Texas band out in the backfield. I guess they're practicing at DKR right now, preparing for the upcoming season and whatnot. It's their game week and prep week as well, just as it is for Texas. But Sarkisian mentioned it earlier on Monday, right, Aaron? It's everything leading up to this week will be exactly as it would be for a week 4, a week 7, a week 10 during the season. Their schedules, their training sessions, tutoring sessions, whether they actually go or not, this weekend with school not yet officially started, they will be mapped out just as it would be for a real game week. And of course, that mock game on Saturday will be held at 2:30, just as week 1 against Colorado State will be as well. So they're taking all the necessary steps to get everything situated ahead of week 1 so that there are no surprises. Everybody's on the same beat, moving to the same rhythm, the same tune, whatever it is. So again, it's exciting. 11 days. Tomorrow will be Vince Young days away from kickoff.
Yeah. Hey, and Rod, it's no secret, but just as a player who played a high school season, then played college seasons, then played professional seasons, this will be as close to a professional season as we've had in college football before. We've talked about when the season starts on Saturday, we're going to run, essentially 22 consecutive weekends, 149 days of college football, potentially for the final 2 games, team standing, 17 weeks of college football. Sark talked on Monday about, calling Andy Reid and calling Kyle Shanahan, calling these coaches who are traditionally playing deep into the playoffs in the NFL to try to understand, how to prepare for this on a big picture level. I think that's, for Longhorn fans, I think you got to feel good that your coach is reaching out and doing that, because it's not just about prepping your team game to game. It's about, as Sark said Monday, you want to be peaking at the right time. You want to navigate the early schedule, but rest guys where you can, but really be playing the best football come November into December and obviously into January, if that's your aspiration.
Yeah, I think Sark has already, emphasized that in the offseason. I mean, every time I hear him talk, he talks about how depth is so important and how, when they do practices, they make sure that there are no wasted reps, essentially, that everybody's getting reps. They go 1s on 3s, then 2s on 4s, so that even at the lowest part of the depth chart, that everybody's getting reps. That is kind of that's to him, that I think that is him making sure that, worst case scenario, if that 3rd or 4th guy on the depth chart has to actually contribute, that they're still being developed. They're still actually that day to day, they're getting as much, meticulous coaching as they can get. So I like that about, Sark's approach to it. And, and now we know early on, you've already dealt with injuries, going deep into the season. He's already talked about certain precautions he's taking, whether it be Jake Majors in the boot. The truth is, Jake Majors, even Sark joked about it, say he's going on 15 years or whatever, but he has a chance to break the all-time record in career starts here in Texas. Shout out to my man CB who informed me of that. So if that's the case, then does he really need to go through a scrimmage? I mean, probably not. Let's just be honest, man. Have you not seen whatever you need to see from Jake Majors? You have. Same system. Guy's been consistent, getting better. So you don't need to see much from him. And I think that approach, I mean, even with Jahdae Barron, right? Talked about that during the spring. We didn't get to see Jahdae Barron in the spring. Why? Because Sark said, he dealt with some injuries. We just want him to get healthy. Jahdae Barron healthy, that means more to us than us getting some spring evaluation of a player where we already know what he brings to the table. So I just think now the approach is going to be tinkered, and that happens in the NFL. The number one objective in the NFL, right? Your number one ability is availability. Get the guys on the field. That's what matters. There are some times in the NFL where guys don't even practice, most of the week. It's like, I just got to make sure that he's available. And I think at one point in the season, knock on wood, if you have, an excess of injuries somewhere, you could have situations like that. I mean, Sark's the one that's on board with the injury report, right? He said he wants a NFL-style injury report and make the coaches have to be accountable, and there are penalties if you're not, abiding by the injury report and abiding by the rules. So I think Sark's NFL experience, you talked about him reaching out to coaches, I think it's going to help him in this newly kind of this new framework of college football where essentially, yes, it's closer to a pro model, but also you're just playing longer and you're playing against. And this is something I think Sark is aware of. I don't know if he is, anxious about it, but he's aware of it. That the level of competition and level of physicality is about to go up. How does that affect your depth too? You've been playing in the Big 12, and not saying the Big 12 is not, a good football league, because it is. I think it's a damn good football league, but a different league than the SEC. And the SEC is a more physical league, line of scrimmage league. And how is that going to affect your depth on the lines of scrimmage, but also ultimately guys on your team having to deal with more wear and tear? Hell, last year you got down. All three of your running backs got hurt last year. At one point, C.J. Baxter got hurt. Jonathan Brooks got hurt at one point. Keelan Robinson had a cast on his hand at one point. Now you're about to go into the SEC. What if that happens in the SEC? You know what I mean? So as a coach, you got to think about that. And I'm sure that's something that Sark is cognizant of and aware of in case he's got to, kind of change his approach to certain things.
Well, Rod, let me give a special tip of the cap to CJ there, because he's out in the heat, which is still about 106 degrees, I think, right now. Because you say coaches are problem solvers. CJ problem solver, doesn't have internet at his house, so he just solved the problem. We'll go down to my old account, and I'll be able to get Wi-Fi at UT. Look at you, man, solving the problem.
Big problem solver, right?
I love it. I like that a lot. But so on that point, and you were at the availability, CJ, on Monday, the idea that, even if it's not injury, Sark is going to intentionally use a lot of depth against Colorado State in those games in September. Obviously, Michigan's a little bit of a different animal, but really lean on some young guys where, as Rod has called it, manufacturing depth in the training camps and in the spring and the summer, to be able to use those guys in September as much as possible against teams they're going to be heavy favorites against all the way until they get their first bye week. I think that's again, Rod's talking about injuries, which you got to worry about, but at the same time, just using the guys on your roster to make sure that you're once you hit October coming out of that first bye week and the Oklahoma, Georgia stretch and beyond, that your frontline players are fresh.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things too. You never know when injuries might bite later in the year. Jaden Blue probably isn't as quickly up to speed, no pun intended, because of how fast he is later in the season if he doesn't get those reps against Wyoming, if he doesn't maybe have some of that adversity of dealing with the fumble and then to bounce back against BYU and to have that big, long touchdown and get that confidence moving for when he does have a 100-yard rushing game later in the year against Texas Tech and then Oklahoma State, and to be so impactful against Washington, right? That doesn't always happen, but you need those little bumps in the road to get you to where you want to go. That'll be the case again this year. And, of course, Texas, we've talked about it all offseason. They feel great about depth on the offensive line. They can go 9 deep on the offensive line. Defensive end, a room that we've talked about, 6 or 7 guys that Texas feels good about right now. Pass rushers galore. Sarkisian mentioned 10 interior defensive linemen. How many of those guys will we see consistently? That's probably a better question. And, of course, at wide receiver, which is now 7 deep potentially in that circle of trust that you like to talk about, Rod. So, up and down this roster, there are capable bodies and there are talented bodies at each individual position. What's going to be interesting is how often and how mindful of the potential red shirts is the staff whenever it comes to getting these guys on the field early and often, right? I think week 1 against Colorado State, you expect that roster deployment to be pretty heavy, right? They're at home. It's a season opener. All the family members are there. You're going to have a good crop of recruits headed to campus as well as it is the season opener. But then week 2, right? You got to figure out who your guys are to go up into the defending champion's house and to play Michigan, especially in the way in which they've prepared all offseason with that same chip on the shoulder that, hey, we might be the defending champions. That trophy's in our clubhouse right now, but everybody is counting us out. Vegas has us as an underdog. We no longer have Jim Harbaugh to be our guy. J.J. McCarthy's departed. Roman Wilson's gone. Everybody really that helped make that team as talented and as successful as it was has departed. So, of course, you know what that's going to mean up in Ann Arbor. They're going to come in with the chip on the shoulder. Luckily, that'll be a great opportunity, like we saw a year ago, for guys like Anthony Hill, Jonte Cook to get some run, Derek Williams to be introduced to the big-time stage, and, of course, C.J. Baxter, who Nick Saban, as we talked about earlier at SEC Media Days, said that was one of the best running backs that he faced the entire season. So, young guys that will be impactful the rest of the season. week 2 against Michigan, they'll get some really impactful run in my eyes to see what they can do in the SEC when it's time for that conference schedule to come rolling around.
Yeah. And then beyond that, I mean, obviously you all hands on deck and all offseason to prepare for that game, both teams. For our on Texas football audience that's not aware, Texas had one first-team All-American in Kelvin Banks. Of the 27 players, Michigan had 3 with their tight end Cortland Loveland and, of course, Mason Graham and Will Johnson in the back end. 3 of the 27 players, there's still players there. There's still dudes. And to the C.J. Vogel point of chip on the shoulder, they're certainly going to have it. But, Rod, I mean, you can almost map out the first 5 games. There's wide depth chart. Colorado State handle your business as a 35-point favorite. Then Michigan all hands on deck and put your best players on the field. Beyond that, then there's UTSA and then Louisiana Monroe and Mississippi State, where you can develop and build some of that depth we're talking about. Beyond that, even Rich. I know on Monday Sark did the availability. Then he did 2 national radio shows. He did Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen, and in both they talked about getting Arch Manning playing time early in the season. Just to be for all the things we're talking about, come the big stretch of the SEC and then beyond, you want all these guys, including your backup quarterback, to see some significant time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, other than the Michigan game with the early games, you like to play well enough when you get a lead early enough in the game, a substantial lead where you feel comfortable. You can put some of those guys in. That also adds to the depth that we're talking about. And you said that Sark wants to play a ton of guys in that Colorado State game early on. Well, to do that, you got to play well enough where you're putting points on the board, you get a comfortable lead. And, I think that could be a theme with this season, right? If Texas can, last year they were getting leads. Now that's Big 12 football. That's not, the SEC. That's a different league, the highest competition level that you can get to. But if Texas is, and Sark has shown, at least in the Big 12, he's shown the ability as a head coach to get leads. Sometimes they would lose those leads and lose the game. And last year we saw them kind of hang on to those leads and find a way to win in clutch time. That's why I'm really interested to see these pass rushers. Sark, it was always about complementary football. Early on, versus Colorado State, for instance, I want to see if that, that complementary football translates. What they're trying to do is, with Sark's kind of offensive brand of football, get a lead at one point in the game in the first 3 quarters, and then be able to close out the game with the run game. And then when you turn your opponents into being one-dimensional, like they did against U of H and TCU and K-State, be able to make some negative, splash plays on defense, force some negative plays, get sacks, tackles for loss, takeaways. They didn't do enough of that last season. I think they did it well, but they weren't great at it, especially pass defense-wise and getting no sacks. This season, with the edge pressure you have early on in the season, we'll see. Not against Michigan, of course, but against, Colorado State and some of your other non-con UTSA. We'll see if they can get a lead, and then we can see if some of the splash plays come after that. And you start to see kind of this momentum, this snowball of momentum that I think they want to end games in rather than hanging on for dear life like they did last year. So that NASCAR package is going to be a big part of that. But the run game is also a big part of that, right? Sark wants to open up with the pass, close with the run, ideally. And being able to do that in games without a CJ Baxter and without the depth at running back, that could also change your identity and your plan in terms of what you want your brand of football to be. So early on, it is going to, I'm so excited they got that Michigan game early on. We won't have to discuss theoretically whether the coaches, are going to be presented with these problems and how they can solve them. They got to have it all solved by game 2. They got to have it all solved, or at least possible solutions ready by game 2 for almost every issue they have. Because if they don't, Michigan will expose them, and then we'll be talking about them trying to fix these issues in season. So that's why that game is so exciting.
Right, that's a great point. I mean, you look at Oklahoma, right? They have Temple, Tulane, and Houston. You're not going to get a whole lot of an idea of what your team can do against Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama later on the year because of what you did in the preseason, right? I know that they're not necessarily your Incarnate Words or Sam Houston States or those teams that teams buy all the time, but hey, you're not going to learn a whole lot playing Temple, right? Tulane's not going to be a formidable opponent that is comparable to what you see in the SEC. So Texas, as you said, getting tested early, very important to have those remedies and solutions on hand immediately when conference play comes rolling around rather than getting hit in the mouth and looking around saying, okay, now what do we do? Because we haven't seen this type of speed. We haven't seen this type of size. I love that point. I think that's very important. It benefited Texas tremendously a year ago.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. No doubt.
Well, and as you and I talked about, Rod, and then CJ all last year, Sark with a whole offseason to prepare. I know he knew Nick Saban more than he knows what Wink Martindale's going to do as far as the new defensive coordinator, but all offseason to prep for it. Yes, I mean, Michigan's got two top 10 picks on their defense, but Alabama had Dallas Turner. They had Kool-Aid McKinstry. They had two corners that went in first round. Well, like they didn't have talent, and they still were able to dial up a game plan that put 34 points on the board. I think against Michigan, you get anything close to 30, you'll win that ball game. But to your point, Rod, they're going to make you prove you can run the ball. I know that. I don't know what Wink Martindale's plan is, but he's going to say, hey, man, I am not getting beat with deep balls. You are going to show me you can run the football before I give up anything in the passing game. You can put that in the book. I know he likes the blitz, Rod, but that's going to be in the book, and we'll talk more about that. Also, there was a player availability today with some guys, Vernon Broughton included. We're going to get into some of that with CJ Vogel. He was there covering it live for On Texas Football. But, Rod, can you tell our great folks here on a Tuesday night live stream about the great folks at Hargrove Roofing and what they're all up to, man, and helping us do this and make On Texas Football grow into the power that it is?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, E. And, of course, we are really grateful for our friends over at Hargrove Roofing being a part of the On Texas Football family. That's why my man Stevie Lee, actually, lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, he joins us Mondays on the Winning Drive, 3:30, by the way, courtesy of our good friends at Hargrove Roofing, with offices all over Louisiana, Arkansas, and, of course, the great state of Texas, including Austin, Texas. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're Longhorn-friendly, folks, with partners like lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, Bert Arbin as well. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. You can call them today for a free roof inspection. Hargrove Roofing know who's on your roof. You can see the number right there, 512-645-3202, or visit hargroveroofing.com, and we appreciate all of them and their support. That's Hargrove Roofing. Know who's on your roof.
Know who's on your roof. Thank you, Rod. Appreciate all our partners. We'll tell you more about them throughout the night. Hey, CJ, the availability today on the heels of Mac Brown. Good Lord. On the heels of Steve Sarkisian's on Monday. What'd you learn today about from the players and the guys you talked to after, as they moved from the training camp mode into mock week mode into game week mode?
Yeah, a couple things. Bobby Burton and I had a good conversation earlier today that kind of recapped it all. But one of the largest takeaways that I had is, these guys are upholding one another to a certain level and standard in which I think has been a little bit new compared to what we've seen in the past. Of course, we've talked about the culture. We've talked about that locker room and the leadership committee. Now there's a certain standard in which we're hearing about pretty often when it comes to Steve Sarkisian and now the players. And that standard essentially is just the discipline to do the little things in the offseason, to pay attention to the details, and to trust your coaching staff before practice, before fall camp, to get yourself in a position to hit the ground running and to essentially come in ready to rock and roll come week one. And so we heard that from Manny Muhammad today. We heard it from Hayden Connor, who's been around really. I know Steve Sarkisian in his presser said Jake Majors has been around here for 15 years. Well, you could probably say the same thing about Hayden Connor, right? That first NIL deal was a house somewhere in East Austin. And, of course, he's been doing a great job in the community here, but it feels like he's been here for a good while. So to hear that that's kind of being what's instilled right now is these guys, kind of uplifting the newcomers out of the portal and obviously the true freshmen to what the true standard of Texas football is. And hasn't always been that case, right? The last 15 years or so, minus skip or two, a year or two over then, you probably wouldn't have seen it at that same level. But now that's being talked about behind walls. One thing I really like from Hayden Connor is that offensive line is going for the Joe Moore Award, right? That's the award for the best offensive line in the country. He says that there's kind of a poster or a plaque or some sort of, I guess it is a poster or sign just hung up on the wall of the requirements that the offensive line needs to have to win that award. And he says before they go out for practice every day, it's the offensive line that just walks up and gives a little pat. Play like a champion today kind of thing. The Howard's Rock, you see it all over college football. This time it's one individually for the offensive line room. We're going to go win that Joe Moore Award, and we're going to be the best offensive line in the country. To have that as your goal and to go out and kind of, I would say, set your sights to achieve that, you got to like that if you're Quinn Ewers, and you definitely have to like that if you're Jaden Blue or any of those running backs right now.
Yeah, if you to do that, you definitely got to have, like, you basically have to allow basically one sack or fewer per game, right? I'm not saying that's the only criteria, but if I go look back at the offensive lines who've won that award, CJ, that they're not, these are offensive lines that are allowing a sack or fewer per game, right? And what was Texas last year? Around 2 sacks allowed per game.
Yeah, Rod, remember, I think Washington actually only allowed about 7 sacks the entire season. Michigan only allowed 5. So
wow,
you talk about it. I know Texas was down there a little bit. I think they allowed 24 sacks a year ago, so maybe a little less than 2 per game. But
okay,
you see the increase in level of play in which you need to take it, your play to if you're going to be in that conversation.
Yeah,
good stuff.
I mean, that's I think this goes to the conversation, Rod, of the continuity on the coaching staff, the same coaches, the same coordinators for the most part. They've had some changes, but mostly as far as the leadership within each room, offense, defense, and special teams and head coach, it's been the same. I know you and I have talked with the great Todd Dodge, the high school coach, about goal boards, right? And, the recipe is pretty simple. You achieve these things on a week-by-week basis, you're going to win games. And so if you're breaking that down to CJ's point of position groups, hey, offensive line, don't give up more than 1 sack. Don't have more than 1 offsides penalty. Don't have more than,
Yep.
I know offensively it's like 3 and outs and turnovers and these kind of things, blown assignments, blown coverages, those kind of things. Now that you're 4 years into your 4th year with these same coaches, those goal boards become real specific to where it's, hey guys, the scheme, the game plan, what we're doing. We've been here together for a while now. Let's execute at a very, very high level. Let's execute to where we're minimizing our mistakes. And if we do that across the offense, defense, and special teams, we're going to win a lot of football games.
Yep. And I think I'm hearing that from guys. CJ, I remember listening to Taft Dad. He started talking about missed tackles. And I got the impression that has been an emphasis in the defensive backfield, that they've been giving up too many big plays just on yards after the catch and yak yards by opponents. That's why they've given up some of the conversions on 3rd and long in some of those situations. So I think everybody, to E's point, they're getting specific now. Like, I don't know, this is the goal. And I think for the O-line, they got to get the sacks down. And by the way, that's not just the O-line, ladies and gentlemen. Like the belief now in the analytics era is that basically most sacks are actually quarterback sacks, that that basically it's the quarterback's responsibility, or it's the quarterback's fault that it's a sack, that most of the time. So a lot of this is on Quinn. So that sack rate and those pressure rates, that's on Quinn. Remember, we heard Quinn talking about, and he was asked about stepping up in the pocket. And he said, yes, that's one of my big emphasis this offseason has been stepping up in the pocket. Once the pocket collapses around you, you can maneuver and manipulate the pocket to buy yourself more time and more space by stepping up in the pocket. Also, that'll probably help you naturally with your throwing motion. Instead of you sitting back and Quinn can make all the throws with lazy footwork, that'll also incentivize him to have, I think, more efficient footwork by stepping up in pocket. So he's already said he's worked on that, and he's worked on it with his natural straight drop back. He says as a play action passer, he naturally steps up in the pocket. I guess it kind of goes with the flow of the play action for him. But as a straight drop back passer, which is what NFL scouts want to see more of, that's when he struggles a little bit with, stepping up in the pocket and being a pocket scientist. So I think some of that actually is on Quinn to be better at. Man, we talked about this with Michael Penix, talking about sack avoidance. It was his X-Man ability. Couldn't get to him. Yeah, you talk about Washington sack numbers. How many of them sack those avoided sacks, which is Michael Penix, is 6 cents, and knowing where defenders are and being able to make those subtle moves in the pocket. Ask Ethan Burke about it. Ask Byron Murphy about it. So I'm not saying Quinn needs to be Michael Penix, but there are times where you can work in the pocket without abandoning the pocket and still be able to work through your progressions. And even Sark said he needs Quinn to go from now getting to the 1st and 2nd progression to now the 3rd and the 4th and getting to the 5th. And you do that in the pocket unless, and he works outside the pocket pretty well, but that's usually scramble drill. That's when the play breaks down. But you want to get deeper into the progression, straight drop back. He's going to have to get better at stepping up. And he acknowledges that, by the way. I'm not telling Quinn something he don't know.
100%. CJ, thoughts real quick, and then we're going to tell you about Mark Saunders and his team at Allstate. But thoughts on that beyond the what Rod says about the offensive line?
Yeah, 100%. I see we have some LSU fans in the chat. I will say LSU has a pair of really impressive offensive line tackles, right? You know, they got some great that tackle duo, probably one of the best in the country, but we'll see how they do with the worst defense in the country, as well as no longer having the Heisman winning trophy quarterback and a pair of first-round wide receivers. So we'll see. Hopefully those tackles can carry LSU pretty far this year. Anyways, back to Texas and its offensive line there. Rod, I thought you were right on, right? You know, to have that unit to step up to where it's expected to be in 2024, that's going to ultimately carry the run game for Texas this year, right? No longer do you have a CJ Baxter to kind of carry the load there. You're going to rely on Jaden Blue and Jarrett Gibson and Trey Wisner to get you to where you want to go. But those running lanes have to come from somewhere, and that has to be from your offensive line. Who, if you go across the board now, there's no one that you can point to and say, he's kind of young. You know, he's still growing and he's still learning. I know that Cam Williams is in his first year as a true starter, but this is a guy that, again, he's been in the program for 3 years now. He had a top 25 start against Kansas State a year ago. By all accounts, he's actually turned into a pretty solid prospect that the NFL is looking at right now behind the scenes in practice whenever scouts come through. So that offense line should not be a weak point. And if it is, Texas might be in for a longer season than many want to admit. With that said, I find it very unlikely that they take a step back, even going into the SEC. Could there be some struggles initially with some of those interior guys that they'll face week to week? Sure. But I think you'll have a great idea of that, as we talked about with Michigan week 2. You'll know. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, giving them all that they can handle to get an idea of what's needed to adjust. Do they have the right pieces at the guard spot? Because, again, there's 4 guys right now and kind of what's been a revolving door. That'll be interesting. So, again, I do think this offensive line should be a great strength spot for the Longhorns in 2024. Anything short of a team that's in that conversation for being a finalist for the Joe Moore, I think would be a bit disappointing. But we'll see, because football not played on paper. Rod, you know this. Aaron, we've been along long enough to realize that you got to go prove it and show it on the field before anything else is possible for these guys to be, claimed whatever they want.
That's why they play the game.
That's why you play the game. Well, you just said it. We'll talk about the defensive line coming up in your conversation with Vernon Broughton on that side of the ball here in a minute. But you're talking about Kelvin Banks, top 10 pick potentially in the NFL, Cam Williams, DJ Campbell, probably NFL players and early round draft picks. And then Jake Majors, 43 starts, Hayden Connor, 38 starts. Lots to like about that offensive line. Hard to believe they take a step back under Kyle Flood's coaching and leadership there. Hey, listen, speaking of being in good hands and being protected, when it comes to protecting all of your stuff, it's such a great thing when you put your head on the pillow at night to know that all of your stuff is protected. If it's not, then you have nerves. Are you in good hands is the question. More than 35 years of experience, you will be with the Texas alum Mark Saunders. If you're not actually sure, make sure you call Mark Saunders tomorrow. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders, the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home to your car, extra homes if you've got them, vacation homes, boats, motorcycles, RVs, ATVs. If you're looking for someone in the Austin, Round Rock area here in the 512, give the Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders a call in his office tomorrow, 512-218-8571, 512-218-571. And so ask yourself again, before you put the head on the pillow tonight, are you in good hands? More than 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. If you have any questions, make sure you call him tomorrow, 512-218-8571. Heck, talk some Texas football as well with Mark and his team. They'd love to do that as well as you get it rolling. 512-218-8571. Mark Saunders, appreciate his support here tonight. And there is a super chat from UT Boy. Good evening, Longhorns. Want to give a shout out to everyone on the live stream. May disagree at times, but we're a family. There you go. Respect for life. Hook 'em for life. There you go.
Hey, appreciate that, UT Boy. Yeah, you're right, man. It's all a family, especially now that football season is about to get started. We all, everybody, Longhorn fans, hopefully, just like last season, when the team is winning, very little to disagree about. I remember we were disagreeing about a lot of stuff. Hopefully, we got very little to disagree about with the season coming up.
There's Nicholas saying, thanks for the great content. Do we have some cool player nicknames this year? CJ, have you learned any cool player nicknames so far? Rod, you're the best ever to giving players nicknames.
Man, we got to talk to Dr. Ruben Pizarro, man. he does a great job with the Spanish broadcast, and he comes up with all it gives everybody like a Spanish nickname. So we got to talk to him. He does a good job with that stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get some nicknames.
I got one that was uncovered not too long ago that apparently the defense is calling Anthony Smith Hurricane. So how about that?
I like that.
We'll see what the young freshman linebacker can do year one. But that's a pretty solid nickname, I'd say. Coming out of the gate with Hurricane, I kind of like that.
Bad. I like that. Okay, I like Hurricane. That's not bad. I like
Jasper,
that.
Texas.
Yeah,
the Jasper, Texas.
Hopefully, he lives up to it. I like that.
Hey, is it okay, guys? I want to get to the Vernon Broughton stuff too, but it's probably a good point to get to the question I wanted to ask you guys about Quinn Ewers. Can we call Quinn Ewers the deputy now, thanks to the Fanville commercials? He's the deputy. You know what I mean? Fanville. I mean, Rod and CJ, we talked about Quinn having a lot of pressure on him this year, maybe more than any other player in college football. But he's leaned into the NIL space, and he's arguably the face of college football in 2024, good or bad. He's on the cover of the football game. He's now part of the Dr. Pepper Fansville cast, and it feels like that's going to be an ongoing role with Brian Bosworth. He's going to be playing these marquee matchups. We know he's working with the lawyer here in town and the Net Jets and the Roebuck and all these things. I mean, he's all in, and that leads to people that hate Texas, which is not the folks watching tonight. They're kind of rooting for Quinn to wet the bed in some of these games. I like it. I like that he's doing it, but can we call Quinn the deputy? I mean, he's all in on NIL and being the face of college football in 2024. He's going to get a chance to back it up, good or bad, against Michigan, OU, Georgia, A&M. I mean, that's fun. I like it. What do y'all think about all the national pub that Quinn is creating for himself?
Yeah, I guess we're switching over from cover boy to the deputy, right? He had I guess it was Pilot Ewers was one that we talked about earlier when he had the NIL, the jet deal, and then cover boy. I mean, come on. I mean, what's next for Quinn? That's pretty exciting. I know he's got the Roebuck deal. He was, he's been all over the place. The Dr. Pepper one, Dr. Ewers, that'd be all right. You can go anywhere. I'm sure Texas fans by the end of the year would like to call him, a Heisman winner. So we'll see. But I like it. Again, all this is for Quinn. It's great for Quinn to be able to benefit off of NIL, right? To get a couple dollars his way. I guess more than a few couple, but for Texas specifically, it's a great marketing department, right? And it's not going to stop anytime soon. You know why? Because they have Arch Manning coming up, right? And that Manning name is going to be plastered everywhere. We saw the NCAA video game, the commercial that came out with Eli and them sitting there in the film study room. It's not going to stop anytime soon, and that attracts. I've already been told by a few 2026 recruits, hey, how can I get in contact with the Texas staff? I want to play with Dia Bell. So if that's something that's trickling down already, not just from Quinn to Arch or Trey Owens, but to Dia Bell, which is way down the line, Texas is doing something right when it comes to marketing their guys, attracting that talent, and, of course, making this a desirable place to play.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'll say this, which is interesting. I think Sark is doing a great job because, honestly, behind Lincoln Riley now, I'm not sure anybody in college football has a better reputation as the quarterback nurturer, guru, whisperer, whatever it is. And that's Lincoln Riley. What Sark is doing interesting, he's turning kind of the Texas quarterback room, right, into its own kind of unique
commodity.
Phenomenon. Yeah, commodity really is like that. And to CJ's point, right, it's the only quarterback I can think of in college football that may have as many NIL endorsements or more than Quinn Ewers right now. Could be Shedeur Sanders. But he's especially unique because their celebrity, it comes from something else. The cool factor of Deion, and Deion is, the only Hall of Fame player that's ever decided to become a college football coach. Like it's its own unique element, right? So, but what Sark is doing with Texas and that brand, with having Arch Manning there and having Arch stick around there, right, in the transfer portal era, and now being the heir apparent. You're right. He is turning that room itself like the Texas quarterback room. And you just talked about it, CJ. Now with Dia Bell coming in, it is its own. He got his own cool factor. It's got its own cool factor, even separate from Sark's cool factor now. And that's going to continue with the NIL opportunities you get by just being the quarterback at Texas. And now that, so I'm with you. I love it. I think it's great for recruiting. I think it's great for, it just shows you the power of the brand of the University of Texas that I believe for probably the next 3 years, CJ mentioned, you're going to have the top NIL, probably in terms of revenue, you're going to have the top NIL revenue QB in all of college football. Definitely with Arch, but I think Quinn's probably right down. I don't know Shadur Sampson. I haven't done the math, and none of us have those numbers, but it's probably between those two guys.
100%. Well, and I think what you just said is right, Rod. I mean, I think we know, and our audience knows, because we talk about it all the time, that the narrative on Arch Manning is what it is. He was a different recruit than any other 5-star recruit we've ever seen. He's a different player, but the national narrative continues to be, if he had jumped in the portal, he could have made a fortune to go play at Ohio State, or he could have made a fortune to go play at Oregon before Dylan Gabriel, before Will Howard, any of those guys, and he didn't. But I think we know why he didn't. But at the same time, doesn't mean it's not something you can lean into. CJ is, how is Sark doing this? How is, Malik Murphy, he even said, I didn't want to leave. I loved it there, but I had to if I was going to play. So now he's a starting quarterback at Duke. To your point about Diabell, the next wave of quarterbacks are already talking about it. That is a commodity, and it's currency for Sark that, we're the cool place to be if you're a big-time quarterback now and off to your NFL career.
Don't forget Hudson Card starting too. He's starting for Purdue.
Purdue.
You'd be like, hey, you can come here and sit for a year and go start somewhere else and just learn from Sark and hang out in that QB room.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, there's very few quarterback gurus that can do what Steve Sarkisian does, right? When you look back at what he was able to do at USC and Washington, Alabama, and now at Texas, it's attracting these big-time, 5-star, everybody knows the name out of high school quarterbacks, which then attracts some really incredible wide receivers, right? We've seen what Texas can do at the wide receiver spot. We just saw what they could do out of the portal this past year. At Alabama, sending all of those guys to the NFL, one, that helps the quarterback's job, and two, that helps yourself as a play caller, be put in those situations where your offense on paper is unstoppable, but because you've gone out, you've recruited the quarterback, you've recruited the offensive line, you've recruited those wide receivers, now on the field, it's unstoppable. And I think that's where Sarkisian would like to get this thing to go, right? Of course, we can talk about those 6 or 7 wide receivers expected to be in that circle of trust right now, but at the end of the day, it's Quinn Ewers who helps make this such an attractive spot for these guys to want to come play. Of course, one of the big reasons in which Isaiah Bond entered the portal was, one, well, Nick Saban retired. 2, there's a little bit of unrest. And 3, hey, Quinn Ewers, I just saw him in person. I saw what he could do with the deep ball to Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell on my own field. We lost to Quinn Ewers by 10 points. I kind of liked what I saw there. I'm going to go play with him. And I'm going to go play with Steve Sarkisian because I saw what he can do to dial up his 2 top wide receivers. I like that. All right, I'm going to go do that. And I think to an extent, Matthew Golden saw the exact same thing. Texas, I know that Quinn was knocked out of that game, but early on, Quinn was on fire, 21-0 lead. Big bomb to Xavier Worthy for a 40-yard touchdown. Found Adonai Mitchell on a Washington route for a little comeback in a wide open pylon. I mean, both of these guys saw exactly what he can do and say, yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, I would kind of wish that was my quarterback. So if I do have the option, I'm going to make it possible. So it branches out a number of ways in which you probably wouldn't expect, but as a result, it's great marketing for Texas, and it puts them in a great spot to be competitive with the best in 2024.
Yeah, and I'll throw this out there too, honestly, and we talked about it before the spring game. I told you guys, I said, watch out for this kid, Trey Owens. He's the real deal. I know he wasn't getting as much hype as an Arch or as much as a Quinn, but the dude's got an absolute cannon, and I think he's got some of that it quality. I think Longhorn fans know it now, and unfortunately, I think he could be one of them great stories too that leaves Texas after a couple of years, developing on the Sark and going to start for another program. I think he's got that kind of talent too. So and by the way, that's okay. That happens. That means at this point, you got a healthy quarterback room. You can't keep them all. The blue chip transfer rate, guys, is like 65%. You bring a blue chip quarterback on your campus, it's like a 60% chance they're going to end up transferring anyway. Can't keep them all because they can't all play, but you got to keep bringing them in because that is a kind of a healthy program habit, healthy organizational habit. It's like socks and underwear, man. You can never have too many. Just keep bringing them in.
Well, you're right about that, and that speaks to when we're talking about the quarterback room cool quotient and development quotient. Trey Owens was kind of a 3-star player who is developing into a 5-star caliber talent on the open market. you got the 5 stars, you got the 3 stars. Again, Sark becomes kind of that Yoda guru as far as that goes. There's just whether it's all true or not doesn't matter. The narrative matters, the perception matters, and the perception is very strong right now. Last thing on Quinn, Rod, I want to ask you about the one thing that I do know as far as pressure on one player with C.J. Baxter's injury, this offense now runs through him. The success and failure of the Texas offense in large measure against their biggest games is going to run through how Quinn Ewers plays. And I know last year in the 4 biggest games they played against Oklahoma, Washington, Oklahoma State, Alabama at Tuscaloosa, he averaged 366 passing yards in those games. Well, like he played bad. He's got that ability, but that's where this Texas offense is. It's going to run the good or bad is going to run through how Quinn performs on a Saturday by Saturday basis.
I totally agree with you. And if I'm Sark, I lean into it. You lost your starting running back. You lost some depth at running back with Christian Clark. Your identity is usually, it's usually forged right by the strengths of your offense. Where are you better than your peers, right? Where do you separate from your peers? And for Texas, it's that wide receiving core. Now he's talking about seven damn wideouts in the circle of trust, which is crazy. All right, it's way too many. All right, but that's okay. But that just means you're deep at wide receiver. You got a third-year starting quarterback in the same system. You got 4 or 5 stars returning on the offensive line. And I think the headset communication is going to be big. Now, the headset communication is not going to help the run game, guys. It's really not. Every now and then, I guess it could, because you can help a quarterback check to a run play, maybe kill another play when you got some package plays in there and get you in the right run play. But for the most part, it's going to be exponentially advantageous to the offense. And it's going to be even more, all right, of an advantage for coaches who've done it before. And Sark has done it before in the NFL when he was offensive coordinator with the Falcons. So he's already done it. He knows how it works. And I think with a third-year starting quarterback name, they're speaking the same language. At this point, that should be Quinn's offense. Quinn should have ownership of that damn offense right now. He should be going to Sark, talking to Sark about, these are certain tweaks. These are certain things. I know Sark does that anyway, by the way. Sark says, I only call plays my quarterbacks like anyway. I'm going to call plays they don't like. But by this time, third year in the system, Quinn should like all the damn plays in the playbook. He should know them so well. So I think that's all, to me, going to be an advantage for the passing game. And I think at one point, and I'll still say it, he should break out that 10 personnel package, that red package that he had at Alabama. Didn't see much of it here in Texas. Haven't seen much of it. And that's just 1 back, 0 tight ends. You should break that out, because I don't think there are many teams other than Michigan and Georgia that got enough DBs to be able to cover 4 of your best wideouts across the board. It's going to be somebody, a Ryan Wingo, Matthew Golden, a Silas Bowden, that's going to have a really, really bad matchup or a really good matchup for you. So I just think you got to lean to the passing game. And it doesn't have to be vertical shots downfield. We're talking about extensions of the running game, long handoffs, screen game, RPO, quick game, second nature throws for Quinn Ewers. That's where I would go with the offense. I said it after C.J. Baxter injury. I would double down on it after Christian Clark. Your early down pass rate should increase. Sark should be around 60% early down pass rate, which is what he is closer in big games. So early game pass rate should be close to 60%. Throughout the game, it can balance out to 50-50, which is what he wants to be, because he's a moderate. But you can have balance. But early in the game, when you're trying to blitz your opponent with speed, opening up with the pass, 60%. Put it in Quinn's hands. If Quinn ain't ready for it, then Texas they're gonna underachieve anyway. All right, if Quinn ain't ready for it. But I think we all know Quinn's ready for it. We're just talking about all the NIL deals. This is Quinn's team. Quinn's the one that's calling the players only meetings now. It ain't Rojo, it ain't Jay Witt. It's his Quinn's team now. Give it to him.
Yeah,
we just talked about Colt McCoy, how great Colt was. Why was Colt great? For the same reason VY was great. Because Matt Brown decided to give it to him. I'm gonna give it to you, man. It's your team. We're gonna listen to 50 Cent. We're going to jam for the games. We're going to do everything that VY would do, because it's VY's team. And what did VY's team do? Won a national title. Same thing with that team. That was Colt's team. No doubt about it. That team went to Mac and told Mac, Colt's our starting quarterback. He ain't got to go win the job. He already won the job in our eyes. All right? And then once he had matured into being 08 Colt and 09 Colt, that was Colt's team. And they built that offense around Colt. Greg Davis gave the damn offense to Colt. So I think that's what you got to do, man. At one point, as a coach, you got to do that. I remember Tom Herman told me, he said, one of the proudest moments I've had is when I realized that Sam Ellinger knew more about my offense than me. that basically he came to me and he was suggesting things about the offense that I didn't realize, that I actually was a little ignorant to. And I thought to myself, okay, Sam's offense now. It's your offense now. Why is Dak Prescott's MVP season? They built the damn offense around him. They called it the Texas Coast offense. It was just Dak's offense. That's it. And they're doing it in Kansas City right now. Patrick Mahomes said, I'm tired of throwing underneath routes. I need a deep threat. I need verticality. What they do? They brought in Hollywood Brown and they drafted Xavier Worthy because it's his offense. Andy Reid's going to retire one day. And what's going to happen? It's going to be Patrick Mahomes' offense. At one point, you got to give it to the quarterback. Can't be your offense anymore. And I think at this point, that's what Sark's got to do with Quinn this year. Give it to him.
Yep, 100% right. No, that's well said. No more to be said about that. I do want to talk to CJ about that headset communication and how that can, I think because I'm with Rod 100%. I think people underestimate how important that can be for a quarterback to be having his pit boss in his ear between plays, reminding him of things, checkdowns, and things that need to happen. But Rod, tell them about Duck Camp. That's another one of our great partners here on Tuesday nights on our live stream. As someone said, preach, Rod, but preach about Duck Camp, my friend. You're muted, Rod.
Duck Camp, thank you, folks. Duck Camp is for the outdoor spirit in all of us. They make outdoor good so that we can outdoor good. I'm really excited about having Duck Camp report the team. As a matter of fact, I got some of that great Duck Camp gear coming. I just ordered some. They got their new fall collection. You want to go check that out before they sell out of that new fall collection. So go check it out for yourself, duckcamp.com. They have great hats, got great outdoor gear. If you're a fisherman or if you're an avid hunter, someone like me, I enjoy the campfire camaraderie. I think that's the best way to put it for myself. Either way, I got that outdoor spirit, and Duck Camp is geared towards the outdoor spirit in you, making outdoor good so we can all outdoor good. That's duckcamp.com. Go check it out for yourself. I got some Duck Camp gear coming in the mail. I'm really excited about that. I got a couple of shirts, got a couple of hats. So I'd encourage everybody to go check it out for yourself. Thank you very much. Duckcamp.com.
Yeah, man. Lightwear, sun protected, looks great. Whatever you're doing, I love that a lot. Hey, CJ, before we talk about Vernon Broughton, because I want to get into that, huddle communication. Rod just said people don't realize how big that is, especially for Sark, who's done it at the NFL level. Quinn, they've been working on it. I just think about, Quinn as a quarterback, and to have Sark being able to talk to him up to 15 seconds before snap, just, keeping him on task, on focus, talking through things, in real time. Understanding, hey, who just came on the field, who just walked off the field with an injury, what's our alignment here? Those kind of things I think are invaluable for a young quarterback who's trying to take that next step, as Rod just said, to make it his offense. But he does have somebody to lean on who's watching when AJ Milwee down to Sark onto the field. These are big things.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with a veteran quarterback like Quinn. And for Rod's point, to turn it over and to make it his own offense, well, having that little birdie in your ear for 25 seconds is certainly going to help, especially when it's a guy who's done it at the NFL level and has had great success in this entire aspect, right? Sarkisian had advocated previously for helmet communication. Now that it's here, I can only imagine Texas going quickly, getting to the line of scrimmage and calling two plays, right? If you get this look, go for it. If not, check out of it and read what that outside linebacker or that cornerback or that safety down in the box does. And I mean, at this point, Quinn and Sark should be almost on a one-way communication line, even without the headset. They should know each other's tendencies, what they like to do, what they want to call or what they want to throw in certain situations. But to have that ability for Sark to sit there and speak into Quinn's ear for 25 seconds, that's massive. Now, I do think that you'll still see that the cards on the sidelines, you'll still see some signals coming in if Texas wants to go really quick. Of course, that communication will still be there for Sarkisian to talk to Quinn Ewers. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a little bit more challenging in my eyes for teams to go as fast as they like. But again, I can't imagine a better situation for Quinn Ewers than having Steve Sarkisian in his ear, kind of communicating what he's seeing on the field, maybe from a way back perspective. I know Sark doesn't like going up in the box and prefers to be on the field, but you will see him at some point, way back behind the defense to get his own views. Obviously, AJ Milwee up in the box to relay down to Sarkisian what he's seeing from there as well, and then all getting that over to Quinn Ewers. I don't know if there's anything more that you would want for Quinn Ewers, who this won't be information overload, which I think can be, that's going to apply at times for quarterbacks who maybe have transferred into a different system or making their first time starting at a college program right now. There will be communication overloads at times. For Quinn, I don't think that's going to be the case again, and it's all because he's been in the system as long as he has.
Yep, good stuff right there. All right, CJ, pick that up with on our On Texas Football Tuesday Night live stream. CJ's out at campus. He's at the engineering school. I'm sure he's thinking about doing a master's degree or something at the Cockrell School of Engineering. Beyond this, he's looking for Wi-Fi. I love that. I mean, you're like a bird looking for a nut. I like it. Hey, tell me about Vernon Broughton today. I thought that was interesting. Vernon Broughton, I know he said that he explained why he didn't make the spring game, and said his now wife would have whooped his ass if he had decided not to go to that, not to go to the wedding. You can explain that, and then what else you learned from Vernon Broughton today?
Yeah, Bobby gave me the lesson because I haven't gone through it yet earlier today. Hey, the woman's always right. The wife is always right. So I'll keep that in my back pocket and make sure that comes in handy at some point later on down the road. But no, Vernon Broughton had some really interesting things to say. First time really getting to hear from him from a Texas player availability in quite some time, I guess, for me, going back to when he was a recruit for Texas all the way back then. But no, he had some interesting things. The top thing that I wanted to talk about was he said Kenny Baker is a bit more technical in his approach to coaching the defensive line position than what we saw a year ago with Bo Davis. And I think that surprised me a little bit. Matthew, here's the clip in which he goes into a bit of detail describing just why he says that.
Footwork, like let's say I'm a 3-tech. And I stop. I'm a right shade, right 3-tech, and I step with my left foot first. Like he will coach all that. My hands not in his chest or outside the pad. And he coaches all that, which I love because I needed that. And then that's like improved my game so much, and I appreciate him for that.
So you hear it there, right? It's kind of and Rod, you can talk about the technicality of the cornerback spot here in a minute. But it's making sure that your hand placement is right. It's making sure that your right foot or your left foot, depending on where you are and who you have to reach, is the first step, right? I'm not sure if that was a lack of tutelage a year ago under Bo Davis. Of course, Texas had great success. But to hear that now from Vernon Broughton, who's been in the system for a long time, and to have talked to Alfred Collins earlier this offseason, who said, yeah, it's the attention to detail that's really standing out to me about this Texas defensive line staff with Kenny Baker and some of the guys that he's brought along with him. I think you're going to see guys really start to take that next step for Texas. And it's going to be guys that maybe hadn't yet, right? It's not going to be a Jermaine Lelay. It's not going to be a Bill Norton. Probably won't be a Tia Savea. We know what those guys can do, but it's going to be the Alfred Collins, the Vernon Broughtons, the Dre Bledsoes, the Aaron Bryants, who have been around for Texas for quite some time and maybe still kind of been hung on a little bit of a technical snag or haven't quite, made that leap to where you'd want them to be, athletically. So I will be after this, trust me. I will be. But anyway, back to the point. Sorry for the interruption there. I lost my train of thought. Kenny Baker, again, just that technical, and attention to detail is really starting to pay dividends a little bit for this interior defensive line, who I think a lot of folks had some questions, rightfully so after last year. But right now, it's becoming more and more of a spot that Texas can rely on due to consistent play, reliance on a number of bodies in that depth that Texas has right now. With experience on top of that, I think it might just be a really plus room for this Texas defense in 2024.
It's interesting that I thought that, it's interesting that he brings up that Kenny Baker is more detailed, I guess, meticulous in his approach to coaching about footwork, hand placement. And he says that obviously Bo Davis was more broad strokes. That makes a perfect sense. There are a lot of coaches like that. I've met a lot of coaches, and some of them kind of broad strokes coaches. They just want to give you what your responsibility and obligation is and try to hammer that home. And some coaches don't want to bog you down with the technical aspect of the game too much, right? There, if you got something that's a liability in your footwork or your hand placement, all right, let's get to that. But I've known coaches who even Coach Akina's style was, I can't tell you how to play the position. I'm not going to tell you exactly, what to do in every situation. I will give you all the tools. I'll give you all the tools you need. You basically think of yourself as Batman. You got a utility belt. I'll give you all the tools you need to succeed in that situation. But you got to be Batman in that moment and find out exactly what to reach for in the utility belt and pull it out and when to use it. Because if I tell you what to do in every situation, you're going to overthink it. And you're going to play slow. And you're going to be right. You're going to play slow. You're going to be hesitant. And you don't want players to play that. You want the players to play with a reckless abandon with no
keep
fear.
it instinctual, right?
Yes. And some coaches, they don't want you thinking about left foot, right hand, there. They don't want you thinking about that. They want you just to play, and they'll give you the broad strokes. And so it's interesting that he brings it up and he knows the difference. So it's, like I said, by the way, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just different coaching styles, like different learning styles. Just thought that was interesting that that he based out of Bo Davis is more of a broad strokes guy. Get inside. Like how do I get inside? Just get inside, damn it. You get inside and you did your job. And I know coaches that were like that. They were like, hey man, as long as you got your inside leverage, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to tell you, as long as you on the upfield shoulder, I'm not going to tell you how to get on the upfield shoulder. That's being nitpicky.
Right. It's kind of like, I'm putting it in layman's terms here. I'm assuming everybody graduated from a math class back in the day, right? Your teacher wants you to show you your work on how you got from, this equation to the answer. And you got to go through every single step, right? Well, some folks, they can just kind of, visualize it. They can do it in their math. Maybe they got some different system that the teacher didn't, necessarily put on the whiteboard and show the class, right? But as long as the answer is correct, hey, all right. But then, you graduate to Algebra 2 or whatever, and you sit there and your professor's sitting there and saying, show me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all those steps on how you got to that, because that's how I know that you got it right. And, well, sometimes it doesn't work that way. But as long as that answer is correct, that those different styles of teaching might connect with different students, or in this case, different players. And in this case, again, it sounds like the technical aspect is reaching Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins a little bit more than what it was under Bo Davis.
Money. Love it. Love it.
Oh, that's good stuff, guys, right there. That really is. That's good conversation. And maybe it's, Rod, that, Vernon Broughton's a fifth-year player. He's married now. He's heard a lot from Bo Davis, and maybe there is some technical side to, okay, I know what Bo was saying, maybe why and how am I going to get there? And especially for the next level, if that's where you want to move to. And guys like Alfred Collins, they're older players who have been through a lot of football.
Yep. And some coaches, listen, they're just great motivators. And we know, I would say this, Bo Davis seems like a motivator, don't he? He seems like a guy, right? They can get men motivated through either fear or just through, great.
No one should be questioning that. That's
for
sure.
And I think that matters, guys. That matters. To get you to play above your level, your skill level. Sometimes it's just a coach getting you motivated to that extent. And I think Bo Davis was good at that part too.
Well, but I just think it's a great. We could pick this up next Tuesday, and y'all can pick it up at any point. But I think it's whether it's boxing where it's a sweet science, you can you beat them up, but at the same time, what's the technical side of it, and how do you actually do it right? Or I'm staring at the golf course here at Onion Creek. What's the golf swing? There's some people that just teach you to take your swing and work with it, but then there's those that want to tinker with every little part of it. That's just the way that goes. I mean, that's coaching, that's teaching. And Kenny Baker coming in from the NFL, kind of teaching it the way the NFL would teach it.
Yeah.
Here we go. Milk Hookham from Bullard, Texas. Great to see Jay Witt balling out. Any predictions who will be the breakout player as a rookie this year in the league, guys, as we close in on wrapping up our On Texas Football Tuesday chat. Look, Jay Witt, I mean, not surprising that Sean McVay loves him. Cooper Kupp's loving on him. I mean, everybody likes Jay Witt. And I know all Longhorn fans are rooting for him. There are 3 first-year Longhorn receivers, X-Man, A.D. Mitchell and JT and Jay Witt. I mean, who's your breakout prediction, guys, as far as the NFL coming up?
Man, I could go one of 2 ways. So I guess I'll go the first route in my mind. I'm actually going to go defense. I'm actually not going to go a rookie this year, but DeMarvion Overshown.
Oh, nice.
For him to bounce back from his ACL a year ago, and he kind of got dinged up a little bit with a hip, but I mean, listen, I'm a Cowboys fan. I've been plugged into Cowboys camp, and right now, when he's healthy, he's a playmaker. He's a difference maker on the field, and that's someone the Cowboys desperately need at that linebacker spot. So I'll get back to my other pick here, but Overshown right now, I'm expecting him to have a great sophomore campaign, really his first time on the field as an NFL pro. I'm excited for him and see what he can do with the star on his helmet. The other one, Jonathan Brooks. I know it's been very quiet for him coming back from an ACL again, but the Panthers have a brand new offensive coordinator, brand new scheme. They put a lot of money into that offensive line, and thank God if you're Bryce Young that they did, because he got beat to hell last year. But Jonathan Brooks, when he gets healthy, I think he's going to step right in. And that run-heavy offense to kind of lessen the load for Bryce Young, he's going to be a guy that surprises some folks.
I like that. Those are good. It's so much fun to talk about Longhorns balling out in the league. It really is. Love the Jay Witt story. By the way, Jay Witt leading the NFL preseason right now, leading all receivers in targets and receptions. So it's just a really cool story. And he's not only going to make the team, I think they're going to have him in the rotation, actually, there with the Rams. But I think it's going to be Xavier Worthy, guys. Don't overthink it. I don't know if y'all watched the last game versus Detroit.
I did.
Oh man, did you watch how Andy Reid's using him? He's using this guy in all types of exotic ways in the preseason. He's supposed to be vanilla in the preseason. He had him motioning in the backfield, running flare. It was a bubble screen out of the backfield. He had one play, was a target to motion at 39-yarder where he had been motion across the formation, and then has the number 3 receiver runs a deep kind of corner route. Oh man, even the touchdown, he was in the slot as a number 3. Andy Reid is in his bag, guys. He's been inspired by the presence of Xavier Worthy. It's going to be Xavier Worthy. There ain't no doubt. And Patrick Mahomes wants the deep ball to come back. It's going to be with X-Men. And he's got a lot of gravity. Teams are already, it's going to open up. They're already double and triple teaming them when he starts running those deep over routes. That's going to be him. And I think also I'll throw out there, man, I think Byron Murphy, I don't know if y'all got a chance to watch him. Go look at it's called Green Light. It's a Green Light. It's a podcast with Chris Long. It's about D tackles, like 3 or 4 D tackles that do it. They got a podcast where they're talking about rookies, and they talk about Byron Murphy. Man, go listen to those guys talk about how good this guy's going to be. They believe he's going to be an all-pro sooner rather than later. Like, he's got that kind of skill. So,
and the fact that he fell all the way to 16 still amazes me, because he's going to be some kind of player. And it's amazing, or it's amazing is the wrong adjective. Interesting. Sark mentioned on Monday, CJ, that the thing that made Xavier special, actually, I was listening to it on the Rich Eisen show, whatever, national or whatever, because he asked about Xavier Worthy. And he said the thing that he noticed immediately is he runs really fast on every route in practice, like all the time. He never runs slow. Like, he never doesn't go super 4.21 40 guy, which, stresses the defense all the time. Rod, you were a DB. Not every receiver runs super fast on every route.
Nope.
Xavier does. And I think to your point about inspiring Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, like, just him being on the field scares people, because he runs 4.21 every route that he's on. He's gonna stretch you out, which makes Travis Kelce's job easier, Rashee Rice's job easier, because you've got to know where that dude is, because he's going up over the top. And part of me thinks or believes that they're doing this in preseason to make sure it's on film for the regular season, because you got to honor it. You got to honor this guy by you at all times. I want y'all to know that, because, I want to throw deep balls, but I want to loosen things up for my Hall of Fame tight end and my other receivers and my underneath stuff and my running game. And you said it about Byron Murphy too, Rod, that guy never takes a play off. That guy never doesn't give a good rep. Those two things stand out as culture for Texas. Jordan Whittington too. That speaks volumes for the Longhorns into the NFL, if those guys show up and take that same culture into Sundays.
Yep, totally agree. And it helps you recruit more than anything, right? It's like the league, these great stories in the league now, it's helping Texas on the recruiting trail and paying huge dividends there too.
Yep, I totally agree there.
All right, guys. Let me tell you about Autograph, and this is an app that I know all you folks out there have apps that you've got. You're going to want this if you don't. Feed your fandom. You're all Longhorn fans. You wouldn't be tuned into this if you were not. But Autograph, the Autograph app is, being a fan is a full-time job. You want to keep up with all the shows here on Texas Football, all the things that are happening. But Autograph does the heavy lifting for you. Just make it your spot. From tickets you want to buy for the big matchups that you want to go to. The Autograph app has curated all the content that you want for all the things you need from Texas, all the podcasts, articles, game predictions, including from the On Texas Football channel, of course. The new replay feature lets you get the day's news, like after your long, busy day where you're actually earning your paycheck and doing things. You check that, you get the replay of everything that you need. All you have to do is go to the app, download it, use the code ONTEXAS. You see it right there. Use that code ONTEXAS. Get it in the Google Play, the Apple Store today, and they do the heavy lifting to be your fan. You buy tickets, you see all the recaps, everything's there for you. Feed your fandom with the Autograph app, and this is what you've been asking for. You've been begging for it. You love the On Texas Football channel, of course, every day, every night, and certainly Tuesday nights. Well, they organize all that, and then you buy tickets. You got everything you want, everything you need right there. Autograph, the app, On Texas is your user code. Feed your fandom with the Autograph app. All right, guys, 11 days. We're best 11 of all time for Texas is Ricky Williams, right? There's no debate about that. Their best Longhorn ever to wear number 11, Ricky. Okay, right? Derek Johnson, too. Derek Johnson, too.
Yeah.
Are you go Major Applewhite or Sam Ehlinger, CJ?
Ooh.
I mean, I was in diapers when Major was running around, so Sammy was my college quarterback. I'll rock with him.
Okay, good. Rod, you played with the Major, so you know you can.
Hey, I'll represent Major out there, man. Hey, I represent the. I got to tell you, the most improbable. I think one of the most improbable stories about being a starting quarterback at Texas, Major Applewhite.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that.
that.
You're the folk hero, no doubt. And then you helped recruit Derek Johnson. So thanks for that for Longhorn fans.
Yes, sir.
You hosted Derek Johnson on his recruiting visit, right?
Yeah, man, had to close that deal. If I didn't, Mac would have never let me live it down. Had to close that deal.
Yeah, pretty good 11 right there. Impactful. He and Ricky are the top two for sure. Sam Ehlinger, Major Applewhite. This year, Colin Simmons sporting number 11, I believe.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
he's gonna be in that NASCAR package. Y'all gonna see it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys. This is awesome. Looking forward to it. We got 4 more head on the pillows until college football starts this weekend. Next Tuesday, I'll be back for my once a week conversation. But Rod, you'll be back tomorrow. CJ and the crew, the Coffee on Football team tomorrow morning. It just rolls on the On Texas Football channel. Thanks to all our partners, Mark Saunders and Allstate, Duck Camp, of course, the Autograph app, and Hargrove Roofing all tonight. Thanks to everybody with the super chats. Thanks so much, CJ. Dude, go get some air conditioning, get a cold beer, your IPA or light beer of choice, my friend.
Yes, sir.
I'll be doing a Tuesday fun day tonight.
Get out of the heat, brother. Get out of the heat. Rod, we'll see you, man. And thank you, Matthew. Thanks to everybody. Let's have a great Tuesday night. Let's talk again tomorrow.
Hook 'em.